Sego, Sewa Guego. I'd like to address the issue of repatriating lands in this capsule. I was graciously invited to Mr. Gollin's home today to basically dispel some, again, disinformation on Mr. Gollin's interests within the small common lands and elsewhere around our territory. So we just wanted to clear up the possibilities that are available to Kanesatake and the repatriation of the title of these lands under every Kanesata'keró's right. So there's some certain issues that have popped up, and we look at the lands. Yes, there's part of the 170 acres in the Pines that can be repatriated under, I guess, a couple of options. One is the ecological gift, which we've spoken about before. But the ecological gift presents certain challenges that the Mohawk Council was researching before COVID hit us. And now we have certain options available. We could go under we could go with the Crown. The Crown could compensate Mr. Gollin for his interests and put it under trust for the Mohawk community. Or we could use our donee status, but again, there's no guarantee the donee status will exempt us from paying any in lieu of taxes. And I think that's the sticky point there with repatriation of lands, is who's going to be responsible for the lost revenue of the municipality. Not that it's any of our concern. Had the Crown respected its obligations on their treaty with our people, I've always said it, that Oka would not have existed. Many of the municipalities within the seigneurie would not have existed. So the benefits to our people are going to be made very clear. The repatriation of almost 800 acres is available to us, not just with Mr. Gollin's interests, but there are others that are available right now. Now, before COVID hit, we were preparing to go into consultation with the community and ask your opinion as to what option you would choose. And the reasons why we should be doing this. What would be the opportunities that would open up? Economically, socially, even within security for our community, to take that first big step that would benefit everyone. And there's some interpretation that the Mohawk Council is selling out. Regaining 800 acres of land to our community, I would not consider selling out. I would consider that as a council finally doing its duty and making sure that the benefits to all are brought back. So, with no further ado, I'd like to present Mr. Gollin here, who would like to explain a little bit to you his intentions, why he wants to do this. And I think you're going to be very surprised that the information that was given about Mr. Gollin's intentions really aren't true. So, Mr. Gollin, thank you very much for inviting us in your home. If you would like to explain to Kanesatake what your intentions, how did you come up with this solution?
Thank you, Grand Chief. First of all, it's an honor for me to address directly to the Mohawk community. My neighbors, in fact, I'm here in the region for the past 35 years. I'm not born in this country, and you will excuse my English. I'm just trying. Some words are more difficult to get through. In fact, English is my third language, but I think it's an advantage. Not being born in this country, I think it's an advantage. I came here without any knowledge of the situation, of the impact of colonialism in Canada. For me, it was like America, you know. I am an immigrant, in fact. And this helped me to get rid of prejudgments that people around me talked about as the truth. And in the past, let's say, 20 years, that I bought in good faith land in the region, I started to talk to people and to members of your community, and I started to have some doubts about what I believed was the truth. And most recently, with all the reports and inquiries, these big reports, Truth and Reconciliation and so on, all these reports, I was truly troubled. It was not in tune with my values, you know, because of course I am a businessman, but I am a human, and I have a social responsibility in the communities where I operate, where I live. And I was really troubled, and I thought that I cannot continue to work in this, I would say not unsanitary, but in this kind of environment with mistrust, with injustice. And as I said before, as an immigrant, I lived what is injustice. I lived what is racism. When my parents immigrated in France, you know, I was not as you are today, which is even worse, but I can tell you, I know what is racism and I know what is injustice and poverty. So when I bought the land of Immobilière d'Oka in 2004, in 2005 I had my first meeting with members of your community, with the chiefs at that time in 2005. As you might know, at that time there were some tensions and differences of opinions between the Grand Chief, Bonspiel, and the other chiefs. So I met the chiefs, and among them there was a big Grand Chief, Clarence Simon, who I had deep talks about questions he asked me, and other chiefs asked me about my intentions, and I explained, you know, I'm here and I'm a developer, and I make lots and so on, and I have no shareholders. I'm a citizen, and I'm, you know, I intend to do that as a living. And after 2 meetings, and I remember my shaking hands with Clarence. I remember it. He asked me not to touch to the pine hill, La Pinette, the pine hill. It was sacred for them. He explained me that the council was in negotiation with the federal. He asked me to get in touch with the negotiator at that time, Mr. Walter, and to explain what my intent. And he asked me also not to do any development other than what is called today les collines without consultation. After that meeting, I decided to do a kind of consultation around the other stakeholders. And for me, the stakeholders were, for example, people at the national park. They had a harmonization table, for example.
Yes.
I even met with the former mayor Jean Ouellet, you know, Mr. Patry. I went to the Société d'Histoire d'Oka, and of course I met Mr. Walter Walling, and I started to make lots. And for the 15 following years, I had no oppositions, no person, body, or came and see me and said stop until 2015 and 17. But before 2017, it's recent history. I had also discussions with you, Grand Chief, if you remember, in 2015. I had discussions with Hélène Gabriel also, and I explained, my intentions about the forest, about the Pine Hill, because for me, I had a commitment, and I wanted to satisfy that commitment. And for me, to satisfy that commitment is to see the possibility to work together to conserve that area. To start, at that time, I thought it was a small step, of not even reconciliation. It was a small step of friendship on that base. And I had, of course, from you, Grand Chief, I had a positive reaction. And Hélène Gabriel too, who was surprised that to find a white person open for the first time. I remember even Mr. Raymond, who was a chief in 2005.
Mr. Raymond Gabriel. Yes,
Yeah.
the late Raymond Gabriel.
Yes, who said to me at that time, "You are the first settler in 3,000 years to consult us about our land." Okay, so I said, there is a way to speak with these people. These people, a lot of people were afraid of speaking with the Mohawks and the Oka crisis. So I said, these people are talkable. These people are even not only talkable, but it's even possible to be friends with them and to have some kind of a partnership in at least in conservation. So came 2017, and I was at the end of my development of les collines, a few lots. Remaining lots. In fact, we are talking about 12 lots, and Hélène Gabriel was preoccupied that the development might not stop there, might go into the pinhead, and it's a legitimate fear, and at her place, I would have done the same. Hey, where are you going? Will you go into the forest? And I started the discussions with her and go back to the band council and say, no, it's we stop there, and this is my engagement, my commitment. And I took the commitment at that time because the tensions were climbing. I took the decision to stop any activity and to reassure that on all vacant land there would be no development. It's a kind of verbal commitment. It's a verbal moratorium that was given at that time, and for all vacant land, which represents 98% of all my land. That is, if you take out the remaining few lots of the final stage of Les Collines, they represent 1 or 2% of all the remaining lands, which we will talk later, I hope, are available now for your community to enter a negotiation process for repatriation. So this is shortly, maybe I took a long time to explain where I arrived, but we are arrived at that moment.
Yes.
That we after 2 years of work with the Bound Council, because I tried to work with Hélène Gabriel too, you know, to explain that you know, if we are speaking one voice, it will be not only faster but a lot easier to set the table for repatriation of land. But I decided that this should not be only verbal, that this should be written.
Yes.
And we prepared together, Grand Chief, we prepared a declaration,
A memorandum of understanding.
a memorandum of understanding.
Mm-hmm.
A memorandum of understanding composed of two main things. One thing, which is repatriation of the Pine Hill, okay, in a way that we don't need governments. We can do it without any intervention of governments through a program which is the Ecological Gift Program, and that this program, okay, help us now to be able to create what is called an Aboriginal protected and conserved area.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a simple ecological gift. This is not a simple conservation program. This is a status which in fact can integrate Aboriginal traditions in the governance of this territory, which can also integrate traditional knowledge in conservation, which is very important to transmit to future generation, you know, things like that. So this is the first component. The second component is that I committed to have any whatsoever activity of development on all available land in the region of Oka, and put all this land it's about 600 acres. Put all this land on the table to help your community negotiate a repatriation with the crown. And I sign, and Grand Chief sign, and this will have legal force
Yes.
only if the community will approve it.
Yes.
So the gift, this initiative, is not for the benefit of the band council, of any other group. This is for the community only, and it's written in this memorandum.
It is.
It is.
Yes, it was very important to us that we get some kind of legal mechanism in place to safeguard the rights of our community as a whole. And the mayor of Oka, we know, has never been happy about that. He's done practically everything he could to try to keep us from repatriating these lands and even interfering with the understanding we have. And it has to be understood that Mr. Gollin also has been subject to, I guess, bullying by the mayor, raising his taxes, trying to take the lands. He's trying to, expropriate. Well, it's a hidden expropriation. So the mayor's trying to move ahead to make sure he blocks Aboriginal title repatriation. Mr. Gollin is trying everything he can, and he's put up with a lot, to make sure that Kanesata'ke's historical grievances, at least on this part, are addressed. There is no selling out. It's actually buying in, is what we're doing here. And the Crown has a responsibility to repair the breach of those treaty promises with the lands. And this belongs to us all. So what Mr. Gollin is offering here is a chance for Kanesatake to take that next step in its development, socially, economically. The development that can happen would have so much of a positive impact on our language, our housing, our education. So there are people out there that are throwing this disinformation out there. You would have to ask them what their reasoning would be, what their plans would be. How would they go about it? I don't think it would be much different than ours. So, as Mr. Gollin said, if the community could learn, try to work together and talk with one voice, it would really put a lot of pressure on federal and provincial governments. And that's the important part here. As long as we keep on talking like this, like we're doing now, and dividing this information, governments, you're giving them a get out of jail free card. We cannot let them do this. We've been experiencing since 1990 so many pains within our community. We've actually imploded on ourselves. Well, it's time for us to do away with that. It's time for us to look at what's available and stop with the rhetoric. We need to look at this opportunity. Future generations will thank us for it, because it will be the first of many steps in our development. And Mr. Gollin, as he's explained to me, he saw the historical wrongs that were done to us, and he had realized that he wanted to do his part, as he told me, to try to fix this breach. And there's a lot of forces out there against this whole idea. And we have to come together, and we have to push back on these forces. These lands have to come back to Kanesatake as a first step. Mr. Gollin?
And it's a question of survival. You know, it's my opinion, and I don't have lessons to give to nobody. But in my book, as we said in French, dans mon livre, à moi, in my book, if Kanesatake cannot expand his territorial base, I think it's not just a loss of opportunity, it's a question of survival of the community.
Yes.
Because the basis of survival if the road to self-determination, and the road to self-determination is mainly two things, as you said. The first thing is to expand the territorial base, expand the usable territorial base, or I don't know the word in English, or it means, by the way, the usable, what we say, usable territorial base, 98% of my land and the other lands, which is vacant and available, is contiguous to your actual territory. It means it's expandable, it's usable, okay? So this first step could be achieved, okay? But only, as you said, if the community speak with one voice. How can you bring governments at the table if the community have or speaks with two sides of the mouth? It's impossible. Governments, even with good faith, will hide behind what they call their rule of law.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the first step to self-determination. The second is to have a set of rules and system that works. And when we say system that works, we mean revisiting governance, system of governance. We mean administration of justice, and it's including Aboriginal police. It means Aboriginal tribunals, laws to protect youth, women, and so on. So it's very important. If the community will not speak one voice with these two sides of the road, survival is at risk.
Well, I've always said that it's up to our inherent lawmaking authority. What our community decides as a collective, as a whole, what laws they want to put in place to protect their interests. It's not up to a band council, as you said. It's up to all of us to make this happen. And I'll speak to it on another capsule about a possibility that we discussed before. There's some good ideas out there on how we involve all segments, different parts of our community at one table. And I'll discuss that later on another capsule. I think some people are going to find this very interesting on how we could do this together. So right now, we have the opportunity, please recognize it. And then I'm going to work hard at bringing the options for your approval. I've always said, as Grand Chief, as the council I sit on, has no authority to sign away any lands whatsoever. It has to be done with your consent. And never will our community agree to cede one more blade of grass to anyone. So, Mr. Gollin, and if there's anything more we would like to add. I know there's a lot.
There's a lot.
Yes.
Really, there is a lot. So, reconciliation is a word, and is a common, practical word, in fact, to hide concrete action. And reconciliation will always be that, until there is a concrete act of decolonization. Because reconciliation without decolonization means nothing. It's like reconciliation without the willingness to compromise means nothing. Because how could you reconcile if you don't recognize rights on both sides if you don't, in fact, if you don't want to reconcile, you will not compromise. If you are not willing to take a mutual risk, because reconciliation, true reconciliation, is also the capacity to take a mutual risk. If the other side just want the other one to take a risk and doesn't want to take a risk, this is not reconciliation. This is domination. So I don't know what you think, Grand Chief.
Well, I think reconciliation does require concrete action. It's not just something you say to make you feel better. Governments are using it everywhere without really proposing any concrete action. And this is where we have to do that for ourselves. I realized some time back that the reconciliation with our neighbors, with Canadian society, would be useless if we cannot reconcile even amongst ourselves. The repatriation of the lands, I think, are one of those steps of reconciliation amongst ourselves, along with the possibility, the opportunities that everyone can benefit from, will lead to that type of healing that we need internally, and would lead to that reconciliation. So, working together will be essential, is to find the right mechanism. Well, like I said a while ago, I will address it on another capsule on the idea of how do we do this. So, repatriation of the lands under the right conditions that our community will accept, that address the historical grievances, the breach of the Crown. That's what's important. That's what I've always sought, and what I'm going to continue to fight for. And I just need the community to take a deep breath, look at this, what we have, what can we do with it, and what can we do with it together. We always have that added problem back in our territory where we have certain members that are taking lands for themselves without asking anyone. Well, that's I think, very disrespectful to the collective, and I think the people have to make their own laws to stop that kind of practice. There's more things we could discuss later, but we have to realize as well that Mr. Gollin, what he's offering, when's the last time you saw anyone at all, show Kanesatake that kind of good faith? I can't remember. So let's look at it for what it is. It really is a giant step for us. And we need to do it together. And stop throwing accusations of sellout, which is always easy. It's been done with everybody. You don't agree with certain groups, oh, you're a sellout. Well, I don't believe I am. And I just want people to look at this in the reality it's given to you, the way we can reacquire. That's all. Mr. Gollin, would you like to add?
I think a lot of things have been said. My last word is I wish and I hope that together we can make a small step, but a necessary step. I said, I think it's Mao Zedong, le tour du monde. How do you say it in English? Le tour du monde.
Around the world.
Yeah, a trip around the world starts with one step.
Yes.
And I think that the road to self-determination and to achieve sustainable true reconciliation start with one step. And I wish you will consider the step that Grand Chief and I are putting forward for your consideration.
But I think it was the philosopher, Chinese philosopher Confucius, who said that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step.
Ah, okay.
So,
See,
but it's around that area.
it's on that side of the planet.
It is, yes. Thank you, Mr.
you.
Gollin. And go to Kanesata'kehró, and hopefully you consider this opportunity. Go on.